Hi everyone, you are welcome to the Azure Administrator Lab series. In this lab, we are going to be looking at how to manage Microsoft Entra ID identities. So when we talk about identities, we are talking about users, groups, applications, devices, and so on. This particular lab is divided into two tasks. The first task, based on the architectural diagram that we can see here, is to manage users' accounts. In the task one, we are going to be creating and configuring users' accounts. The task two, we are going to create groups and add members to that group. So looking at the architectural diagram here, you can see the first thing we are going to do is to create a user with a display name user one. Then we are going to assign a job title to that particular user. The same job title that will be assigned to the invited guest, which is the IT lab administrator. The task two is for us to create a group, which we are going to name IT lab administrators. And we are going to be adding the users that we have created in task one to the task two, either by leveraging on the dynamic assignment or adding the users manually to the group, which we call the user assigned. In this video, we are going to be replicating the task one, which is the create and configure users account. We are going to be making use of the Azure portal as stated in the instruction. So instruction one is for us to sign in to the Azure portal. I'm currently signing to my Azure portal. So for us to be able to see the instructions and the portal side by side, I will be dividing my screen into two. So let's hold on. So the first thing we need to do, like we have here, is to sign into the portal which we are currently signing to. So the second thing is for us to search and select the Microsoft Entra ID. These are some of the feature services that you would see in your Azure tenant when you log in. So you can see the Microsoft Entra ID. You can also search for it in the search bar here by typing, Entra ID, and you will get it. You don't have to type the Microsoft Entra ID. You can also, click on this button here, and from there you click on the Microsoft Entra ID, whichever way suits you. Now, from there, the next thing for us is at least to familiarize ourselves with some of the things within the Azure tenant. So the page you are going to be redirected to is going to be the overview page when you click on the Microsoft Entra ID. On the overview page, you can actually see the name of the tenant ID, the primary domain associated with the tenant. So when you create your tenant, you'll get what we call a primary domain, which is an initial domain, a .microsoft domain from Microsoft. Then you're gonna see what type of license you currently have in your tenant. The users, the groups, the application, devices, like I said, these are Enter ID identities. So we are supposed to click on the manage tenant tab, which is what I'm going to be clicking now. This is going to show you all the tenant your user account is associated with. Currently, my user account is only associated with just one tenant, and that's why you can see just one tenant here. If I have two or more, I will be able to use this switch button to switch to another tenant. But currently, I have just one tenant, in my where I have one tenant where my user account is associated with. You can also, under the manage tenant blade, you can also create a new tenant from here if you need to create a new tenant. But I'm not going to be doing that as this is out of context. I'm going to go back. So the next thing for us to do is to return back to the Microsoft Entra ID and click on the licenses. So I'm going to do that from here. Then scroll down to the license blade. This is just to see or review the kind of license that exists within your tenant. So from here, you can see if I click on the license features, this is just showing you all the features that currently exist within the Azure environment. Now, also, you can see all the licenses that you currently have within your tenant. But here, I have Microsoft 365 E5 developer, Microsoft Power Apps, Power Automate, So you can actually see all this information. If you want to buy a new license also, you can do that from here by clicking on the try or the buy button. Now let's go back to the task of today, which is creating new user. So if I click on the overview, I'll go back to where, so I click on the overview, then we are told to select the user. So we need to click on the user blade, and then in the new user drop down, select create a new user. So let's hold on for these to finish loading. Then here we can click this drop down to create a new user. So we're going to be following this information, this instruction, and to add all the properties of that particular user. So if I click on create a new user, the user principal name, you're told to add, AZ104, which is what I will be adding. Then you can see the male nickname, that's derived. Then what's going to be the display name, which is the same thing as the user principal name, AZ104, user one. Auto generate password is checked, account enabled is checked. If you disable this, that means you want to set your password for that user. The thing is, once the user tries to sign in, the user will still be forced to change their password. So you can just go ahead with this auto generate password. What I'm going to do, since I will still be asked for this particular password when it's time for me to authenticate with this user, if need be, I'm just going to copy, this password and save it somewhere. So let's go. The next thing for us to do is to add a job title. And this job title needs to be added under the property tab. Here, I'm going to click on this and look for the job title, which is what we have here. Then the next thing is for us to add the department, which also is under the property tab. Then the last thing to do here is to add a user location. One particular reason why we need to add a user location is if there is a need for us to attach a license to this particular user. You cannot attach a license or assign a license to a user without a user location. So I'm going to look for United States as the user location for this particular user. And once you're done reviewing, click on review. And once you're done, if you're sure of what this is all the instructions that needs to be added. And we just click on create and create that particular user. So let's wait for that user. That user has actually been created. So we can just set the user by, maybe typing user one. Hold on. That is AZ 104. So you can see this is the user. The user has actually been created with the user type member because that user is a work account that has been created within a tenant. So let's go ahead to complete the other one. So the other one is for us to invite an external user. This user account is a guest user. So we are not going to be creating it the same way we've created this. So what we are going to be doing is we are going to be inviting another user to this tenant. How do we do that? So you need to just get to know, the email of the user account that you want to invite. Even when the user doesn't exist in Azure, you can invite the user. So we need the email, the display name, check the invite box and write these two. So let's click the drop down again and say invite users. So let's hold on. So I'm going to put in my mail, which is babafemi@outlook.com. Then the same. I'm going to give this a random name by saying AZ104 invited AZ104 invited guest. Yeah. So yeah, check the box to send an invitation to the user. If you do not send this invitation, the user will not get an email, to an invitation email. However, there is still a way to actually, if you want to still, so you need to check this box so that the user can get an invitation email. The next thing for us is to add this message here. Welcome to Azure and our Go project. Then just the same way we've done that we've just the same way we've completed the other user, we need to go to the property tab and add these properties. However, before then, let me explain some of these things. This CC recipient is, let's say you are inviting a user account that doesn't have a mailbox attached to the email you are inviting. Let's say you created a random email and there is no mailbox attached to that particular email. So you can actually add another email address that has a mailbox attached to it and just send the email, because if this particular email I've added doesn't have a mailbox, that means I can send it to, I can CC another email. The user will get the email and can use this particular email address to authenticate using the link that has been sent to the other email. This invite to direct URL means once the user has been able to accept the invitation, where do you want to redirect the user to? So that's what you can see here. So I'm going to go to the next tab, which is the properties tab. I can decide to click on the property tab here or just go from here, which is the next thing. Then you guys can see the user type automatically is guest. You can decide to turn it to member, but I'm going to leave it as guest. So same thing, job title is going to be the IT administrator. The department is going to still be, IT, and user location, same thing, is going to be the United States. So let's go down to United States. Let's go down to United States. Let's go down to United States. Now, the next thing for us is just to click on the review and invite that particular user. So an invitation has been sent to this particular user. There are two ways to do this. Sometimes the user might not accept the invitation or not even see the email. Let's say you have invited a user without a mailbox, and this user is claiming, I didn't get any email, so how are we going to go about this? So what we can do, I'm just going to reload this and show you a particular trick where you can actually, send a link to the invited user. So let's hold on. Let's hold on. So I'm going to search for the AZ again, and you're going to see the two guys. So this is the invited user. So let's say I've not even received an email. This email that I've added doesn't have a mailbox. How do I, get the user to accept the invitation? Because if that user doesn't accept the invitation, the user will not be able to authenticate into, that particular tenant. So what you can do is to try to invite the user again. So you can see pending acceptance. So if I click on this resend invitation, it will resend the invitation and also generate a link for me. And I can just, copy the link and send the link to that user, maybe on, WhatsApp or something. So this link has been generated. If that user doesn't have, access to the email. So that's another way, of getting the link to the user so that the user can accept the invitation. So I'm just going to leave that the way they are. So that's the end of that particular task. Then the next task will talk about how to get these users into one group. We're going to be talking about the user assigned way and also the dynamic way of getting the users into the IT lab administrator groups that we'll be creating in a bit. Thank you everyone for watching.